We're in the book of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 8. We're continuing our series, our close look at the book of Revelation, of the book of Genesis, and we are at chapter 3 and verse 8. We see the first example of fear in Genesis chapter 3 and verse 8. The first example of human beings being afraid. And when we are afraid, we have a tendency to hide. When we are afraid, we hide the truth. When we are afraid, we hide ourselves. If we are afraid, we may decide not to go to work. If we are afraid, we hide. We stay at home. Some people stay at home and pretend to be sick. And this is what Revelation is, the book of Genesis is about here with Adam and Eve. Fear and hiding have a tendency to travel together. They're in the same package. You're afraid, you hide. So, throughout this program today, we're going to be looking at the rawness of human nature. Human nature in its raw state, right here in the Bible. Our parents used to tell us that if you start wrong, you're going to end wrong. And they were correct. They were very correct. Two things are making Adam and Eve want to hide. Two things are making them want to hide. Those things are shame and fear. And do you know that shame and fear still make people want to hide today? Years ago, in the 50s, 40s, 50s, 1940s, 1950s, when women got pregnant while they were school children, it happens much more today than it did back then. But back then, when a school child became pregnant, or when somebody was a nurse, a female who was a nurse, only females can get pregnant, became pregnant, or when a teacher, an unmarried teacher became pregnant, unmarried nurse or unmarried teacher became pregnant, it was something to hide. Well, of course, it's not like that now, because they hid because they were ashamed. They were ashamed. And this is what we're going to be looking at in the book of Genesis today. Fear and shame still make us want to hide up to this day. Up to this day, when we are ashamed, we want to hide. And when we are fearful, we want to hide. Now, the truth is, though, that if we do not do things, if we do not do the things that make us ashamed, then we have nothing to be afraid of. If we don't do shameful things, then we don't have anything to be afraid of. So, then we should try to do what Adam and Eve did not do. We should try to do what Adam and Eve did not do. Do not do things that we know can cause us to be ashamed. Adam and Eve did things that caused them to be ashamed. Let's not do that. And when we don't do things that cause us to be ashamed, then we will not be afraid of shame, and we will not be afraid of fear, because we're not doing anything to be ashamed of. And we're not doing anything that would make us afraid, like Adam and Eve did. So if we avoid doing shameful things, we will have nothing to fear. If we avoid doing shameful things like Adam and Eve, then we will have nothing to fear. Don't do things that will make you ashamed, like Adam did and like Eve did. A thief is afraid of being caught because stealing is a shameful thing. stealing is a shameful thing. I could go off on that and talk about it, but I won't. Lying, telling lies, is a shameful thing if you're caught, especially if you're caught. Well, it's shameful, nevertheless, whether you're caught or not. Being caught lying, though, when you're caught lying, it can be shameful. Stealing. If you're stealing, if a person who is stealing and you're not ashamed, you're no longer behaving like a human being. If you can steal and you are not ashamed of stealing, you are no longer behaving human. Because to behave human means that if you steal, you're ashamed of it. But if you're stealing, you're not ashamed, you're no longer behaving like a human. You're behaving like a beast. You're behaving like an animal. Because you're stealing, but you're not ashamed. Why do I say that? A cat, for example, could come into your kitchen and steal your fish out of your pot and sit down in front of you and eat the fish in front of you. Because it's an animal. And a human being, if a human being can do that, he's no longer human. He has 2 feet and 2 hands and a brain in his head, but he certainly lost his humanity there. Because it is the cat that steals and eats in front of you is an animal. The cat has no shame. It has no shame. And when a human being has no shame, he has ceased to operate like a human. A human being can become a 2-footed animal. An animal with 2 feet. Adam and Eve, after they did what they did in the garden that God told them not to do, the Bible says Eve hid herself because she was ashamed. Doing wrong makes us want to hide if we are decent human beings and not animals. Doing wrong makes us want to hide if we are human beings and not animals. Doing wrong, we're learning from Adam and Eve, doing wrong makes us want to hide. It's why thieves put on masks like monkeys. Now, the truth is, all of us can do wrong things. Every one of us can do wrong things. And if we do, we are afraid. When we do wrong, we are afraid to lose our reputation. So we lie about what we have done. A lot of us do. We don't want to lose our reputation, especially if we are high up in society. Like a lot of politicians, they're high up. They lie. Like Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, they're hiding. They try to hide, but their hiding does not work. They are hiding, but it doesn't work because God comes and He comes to teach them a lesson. They're trying to hide. The hiding didn't work. And God comes not to punish them as such, but to teach them a lesson. Now, God did not have to show up where Adam and Eve were. He did not have to go there after they did what they did. He didn't have to show up. God could have simply wiped out Adam and Eve. He didn't have to come to look for them. He could have wiped them out. He didn't have to come calling Adam, where art thou, Adam in the garden, Adam, no. You didn't have to do that. You could have just, poof, wiped them completely out. And he could have done that and started over. Start the world from fresh again. But instead, he came gently. He didn't come accusing. When Adam and Eve did their thing, God didn't come accusing. He didn't come accusing them at all. He didn't accuse them of anything. He didn't come abusing them off and telling them off and cursing them off. No, that's not how he came. He came gently, not accusing, but he came asking them questions as if he did not know what had happened. That's a good God, right? That's a good God. That's a merciful God. Question 1 from God. Adam, where are you? Question 1 from God. Where are you? In the King James Version, where art thou? Remember I said he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to do this. He had already told them what not to do. They did what they were not supposed to do. He could have emaciated them, but he chose not to. He came down asking, where are you? Where are you? Adam, where are you? As if he didn't know where they were. He knew where they were. Question 2, he asked, who told you that you were naked? He didn't come abusing them off. Oh, you're naked? No. He asking question, who told you that you were naked? Question 3, have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? He knew that. It's amazing. It's a great book. Great book that people wouldn't read. They should be teaching this book in school. It should be part of the curriculum. By the way, they have CXC they have CXC religion on the syllabus in the syllabus, but nobody. We're a Christian nation, but nobody teaching it. I don't know why. Maybe that's why we do so. Maybe that's why we have so much trouble with young people. Religion is on the CXC syllabus. It's there. It's another story for another day. So God come asking them some question. Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from? And then he then asks the woman, he asked Adam all of these questions, but now he turns and he asks the woman one single question. He asks the woman one question. One, what is this that you have done? A series of questions. Adam turned around and he blamed Eve. Adam turned around and he blamed Eve. But the truth is that none of that mattered. None of that mattered. The blaming of the Eve did not matter, because you cannot undo what is already done. It makes no sense blaming anybody when something is done. Don't blame, just get it fixed. Just get it fixed. Don't blame. Blaming only makes things worse. And nobody is totally to blame for anything. Nobody is totally to blame for anything. Nobody is totally to blame, to be blamed for anything. So God said, okay. God said, okay. Going forward, this is God talking, essentially. God says, okay, going forward, things will change. I'm God. Things are going to change. From now on, some things are going to be cursed. Some things are going to be cursed. Up until then, up until that time, up until the time when Adam and Eve ate the fruit, curses did not exist. Nothing was cursed. Cursing did not exist. Well, God said to Adam and Eve, okay, from today, there's something called a curse. From now on, things and people will have enemies. God said to them, part of the cursing, part of the curse that will come down on the earth from now on is that people and things are going to be enemies. Before that, enemy did not exist. Before Adam and Eve picked the fruit and ate it as God told them not to do, enmity did not exist. Nothing was man's enemy. Nothing was man's enemy before they disobeyed. He said that from now on, things and people are going to have enemies. He said there will be multiple sorrows. Multiple sorrows did not exist before. Pain, P-A-I-N, did not exist before. God said to Eve, your desire is going to be to your husband. Desire for your husband. The people who study Greek and so on, I will go into that detail. I'm not going to do that. The desire for her husband did not exist. Read the Bible. Her reliance on her husband strongly did not exist. She was an independent woman. Totally independent. Couldn't do anything on her own. Right? But if you were to read the Bible, you will find the Bible says your desire shall be towards your husband. That did not exist before. Men being the head of women did not exist. Man ruling woman did not exist. The cursed ground, the ground being cursed did not exist. Thorns and thistles did not exist. There were no thorns. There were no thistles. Did not exist. Sweating in order to eat bread. Sweating in order to eat bread. Working hard for bread did not exist. Now God said, from now on, going forward, Adam and Eve, both of you, they knew what to expect going forward. He was saying to them, you know what to expect going forward. Expect thorns, expect the ground to be cursed, expect man to control you, especially a woman. Expect man to control you. Expect that you're going to look to your husband for everything you want. You're going to begin feeling pain. You're going to have multiple sorrow. You're going to be sorry a lot. You're going to have enemies. Those things did not exist. Now going forward, he said these things are going to happen. But even in punishment, God is informative and preparatory. What do I mean? He did not have to inform them of a thing. Adam and Eve could have been walking through the garden the following day if God wasn't as good as he was. Could have been walking through the garden the other day and a thorn could dig up in his foot and he wouldn't even know what it was. He could be working if God didn't tell him these things would happen. He could be out there in the field working and all of a sudden sweat start pouring down on his body and he wouldn't know what that was, but God told him. So when it happened, he knew. The ground would be cursed. The ground would be cursed. But Adam, if God didn't tell Adam, Adam would be wondering, why did I plant yam and it didn't grow? But God prepared him for that. It's a goodness. Remember that I said very early in the discussion, that God did not have to tell him these things. Did not have to prepare him for these things. Even in punishment, God is informative and he's preparatory. He did not have to inform them. He did not have to prepare them. They could, Adam and Eve could have been there, and all of a sudden the wind started to blow and a storm started to come, and they'd be wondering, what is happening? What is happening? God, he did not have to do that, but he did. He prepared them so that when the pain started, and the sweat started, and the thorns started to dig them, they were not surprised. And here, they'll be prepared to continue. So this is where we're going to stop today, because I don't want to go on much further. So, God prepared them, even though they did wrong. God, then, here we have a God who is gracious. As I said earlier, he could have just wiped them out. He didn't. And he told them what to expect. That's good. That's mercy. And that's grace. See you next time. Have a pleasant morning, evening, wherever you are listening.